Well, audience, thank you guys for joining. It's another episode of Community Corner. Your girl Trey Holiday here with two amazing women from our community. I have Miss Tana Yasu and Miss Latanyahorace, and I'm so happy that you guys are here today, shedding some light on an issue that for far too long, as we were just discussing, it just does not get enough attention. I'll pass it on over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Miss Holiday. Yes, I'm Tana Yasu, and I am on the Seattle Women's Commission. And for the people that may not know about the Seattle Women's Commission, the Seattle Women's Commission advises the mayor, city council, and city departments on issues that impact the women of Seattle. Commission identifies areas of concern and recommends policy, legislation, provides feedback and opinion on issues of city and state budget, and acts as a liaison between the women of Seattle and city government. So the Seattle Women's Commission, we meet monthly, the third Monday of the month, and our next one will be October 21st from 5:30 to 7:30 at City Hall. It's open to the public, so you can feel free to come and sit in on our meetings and participate. The role of the it's in the Boards, Commission, and Conference Room L280 at City Hall. Our contact through the Office of Civil Rights is Marta Idwu, and her phone number is 206-684-4540. And we also have a website, seattle.gov/Women's Commission. So I'm the chair of the Violence Prevention and Justice Subcommittee, and the mission that we have for this year, our 2019 goals, was to advocate for equitable policies, programs that prevent violence against women, sexual assault, domestic violence, and increase access to quality and responsive services, and promote healthy and safe spaces, relationships for people who identify as women and or gender nonconforming individuals by, number one, advocating for police training and greater collaboration with and across criminal justice organizations and institutions, advocating for continued funding and accessibility for domestic violence and sexual assault survivor support. Number three, seeking ways to collaborate with other city stakeholders to combat and prevent sexual harassment and other malicious harassment. Number four, driving public discourse and education around potential solutions with the public and elected officials about these issues. And five, being responsive to city issues that arise within the committee's established mission. So that's the mission of my subcommittee. And I just want to say that the National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. And the reason I'm sharing that is because October is National Domestic Violence Awareness and Prevention Month. And so this is what we're going to be speaking on today. The website for the National Domestic Violence Organization is thehotline.org. I just want to say, when we hear of Charlene Elise's story, the lens is zoomed into her being murdered by Seattle police. Murder is the tragic end to her young life. It's a closing chapter, perhaps, but in no way the only chapter. We have also learned of Miss Lyles suffering domestic violence and mental illness. Her call to the Seattle police having called the Seattle police nearly 30 times to her home in regards to domestic violence before that last fatal call. And this boyfriend, Miss Lyles' abuser and stalker, what of him? What's his story? So yes, this is a citizen of progressive Seattle, of which I speak. I may not have all the facts, and I agree that this issue requires a much more close look. But what I am sure of is she's Black, she had mental illness, and she was a victim of domestic violence. She suffered most victims of domestic violence fate, which is murder. The twist is Seattle Police Department was her executioner and not her abuser. So we are hosting an event, and I'm going to give a shout out to the sponsors. We have the Seattle Women's Commission, the Seattle LGBTQ Commission, Historic Central Arts and Cultural District, in partnership with Langston Hughes Cultural Arts Institute and the Seattle Office of Arts and Culture, the Silent Task Force, Sistas Rock The Arts, and the Comfort Zone Restaurant. This is for a subject that has remained silent for many years. I must say, Let Your Voice Be Heard events are gaining momentum. The event, Breaking the Silence in Our Community, it's National Domestic Violence Month, and Sistas Rock The Arts, the Silent Task Force, Tana Yasu of the Seattle Women's Commission, Amaretta Sharpley of Tilth Farm presents Let Your Voice Be Heard. We're going to have music, testimonials, different community organizations, local domestic violence advocates and resources available, and our local political leaders and legislators will also partake. Let Your Voice Be Heard is going to be 2 days of honoring victims of domestic violence and survivors. 10/16, which is next Wednesday, October 16th, at Langston Hughes Cultural Arts Center in the Central area. I have the address here. And then on the 19th, which is a Saturday, at Tilth Farm. So, and both of these events are going to run from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And I have some more information on that in just a moment. But I just want to say that people are reaching out to us and wanting to get involved in various ways. We welcome the whole community. This whole concept is about community engagement, support, healing, teaching, and doing it in a way that is most comfortable to us. Using the arts, as we always have traditionally, to bring the community together and foster unity. Domestic violence has been ripping our community to shreds. It's my own personal belief that domestic violence is rooted in the past 400 plus years of enslavement and the following racist systems that have been ruling this country from its inception. Domestic violence has many faces and facets, and they all must be dealt with at the same time. It may seem an impossible task, but a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. I could name off stats and numbers very easily. However, I want to challenge the audience to just Google domestic violence. Google domestic violence in the foster care system. Google domestic violence and homelessness. Google domestic violence and murder. Domestic violence cuts through all sectors of our society. It doesn't matter income, neighborhood, race, creed, religion, age, disabled or differently abled that I choose to say. But yes, Black and brown bodies are the indigenous are affected the most in astounding and horrific numbers. But the fact of the matter is no one is exempt from domestic violence. In this light, I made a call to my sister, Miss Horace, and we decided this would be the year, the month, the day, and time we would raise our voices and shine a light on domestic violence. We reached out to other community members and organizations to set up a safe and healing space for the most marginalized, voiceless, and hurting community members in need. To arrange a platform so that we can see how much more we are alike than different. At many of these type of events, victims and survivors are asked to stand up and tell their stories. And it caused me to look at the situation with a different lens, as I tend to do. And instead of having the people raise their hands who have been victimized, raise their hands, which could be further victimizing and stigmatizing, I would like to see the hands of the people who have never been a victim of or witness to domestic violence in some way, shape, or form, from verbal to emotional to financial to physical to sexual. Domestic violence isn't just about the hurt and pain caused on the outside of the body that we can see. It goes so much deeper into the spirit and psyche of the victims and the perpetrators. Langston Hughes Performing Arts Institute is located at 104 17th Avenue South, Seattle, Washington, 98144, and that is on next Wednesday, October 16th from 10 to 5. And the Rainier Beach Urban Farm and Wetlands in cooperation with Tilth Farms is located at 5513 South Cloverdale Street in Seattle, 98118. And that's where these events will be held. And so I'm going to leave the mic to my sister, Miss Horace, at this time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tana, for that great rundown, that update for all of us to understand the importance of the issue, and also all of the different partners that are involved to bring these events to fruition for our community so that they can be aware. Go ahead, add your sense to this. This is incredible.
Well, thank you, first of all, Tana, and thank you, Traeanna, for just being like ready to talk about it.
Absolutely.
I just sent the flyer saying, please bless us by putting it out in the community. You was like, hey, you want to come get on? I'm like, sure. So I appreciate that. That's
Absolutely.
not a response we get, often in other spaces and places. So it's always good to be with your own people that are willing to talk about it. So, Tana contacted me about putting this event on, and so I was, really excited. And then for myself personally, my role in this is, first of all, I've been doing this work. I'm a survivor. Mm-hmm. I'll say as a child and as an adult, a young adult, and then I've been doing the work for maybe 20 years plus now. In mainstream domestic violence programs, and then in my own community. Mm-hmm. So I've done it in mainstream. I've done it in the state of Washington, working with state coalitions, and then to my own community. And now I really focus specifically on our community, particularly teen dating violence, but violence, period, in our community, because it is so normalized and it's something that happens just way too often. Yeah. We have what we call an underground railroad, which is like, groups of sistering that are spread out throughout the county. And, when things happen, our community normally doesn't call the police. I mean, unless that's like our last resort, but we really don't like calling the police. Yeah. And that's one of the things they complain about when they look at data and who's calling and who's not. They're like, oh, you guys don't call the police. You're not calling. Well, there's several reasons why that happens. And a lot of it has to do with the way that they're treated by the response to the violence. So for me doing this event with Tana and the years that I've done it and the work, because it's just in my spirit to do it, is generations of trauma. It is cellular, right? It's not just, there's violence happening. It's historic. It's generational. It's perpetuated cycles that we need to break as a community. We need to begin healing from it, but we also need to address the issues, and we need to do it collectively. Yeah. Our men are criminalized in this process, and as they are in many, many other aspects. You look at the school to prison pipeline. It starts that young and that early. But in this particular movement, our men have been criminalized to the degree to where, oftentimes the laws impact them in ways it doesn't impact our white counterparts. Yeah. And there's plenty data and evidence to support that. But we would like to see more of our men involved, more of our men speaking out, because men are victims of violence just like young boys are. Yeah. Victims of violence and sexual violence. These are some of our adverse childhood experiences. This is what our experience has been, period. Mm-hmm. And so collectively as a community, that's the only way we're going to ever put a stop to it or end it or reduce it or make it not okay or not so normalized. I would like to see more community response to it. Right now, we don't have a community response to it. That's why we call the police. But if you look at the Somalian community, when things like this happen, they call their imam. The imam shows up. They work it out in their way. Now, I'm not saying that it always stops it, because I've seen situations where their mom showed up and it didn't stop. But at least they had a response to it as a whole community.
Right.
We have none of that. Mm-hmm. We don't have our clergy interceding in a way that I know of, and I really wish I was wrong, but I haven't yet to see that. Right. So we need all aspects of our community to come to the table. So at this event, we'll have a host of grassroots organizations, mainstream organizations, folks all over the county, Native, Somalian, African American, Latinx, youth, elders. We want everybody. We want our men. We want our young men. We want our LGBTQ population. We want our disabled we want everybody, because
Yeah.
this is our community. Our community is not one dimensional, and it's not look one way or is one way. We're very diverse people in terms of who we are on the planet. And so we want everybody's voices to be heard. And since we started promoting it and putting the information out, it's just really been amazing, the response that we've been getting from folks in the community, that, you know, they're just like, hey, look, this happened to me. This is my story. I want to come. I'll be there both days. I'll tell my story, because I've been isolated. I've often felt like, you know, it was my fault, you know. So we want to provide a safe platform, you know, for that to happen. But ultimately, too, you know, for all the honoring and everything that's going to happen and that we're projecting to see happen, we want to see in some of our we'll have different breakout groups. We want to see what we can do moving forward as a collective community. Like, hopefully out of this, we get some think tanks and some groups of folks who want to see the status quo change. Yeah. You know, but it takes more than 1, 2, or 3 people. It takes a collective of really intentional, purposeful, serious-minded folks to do it. And because violence is so interwoven into all aspects of our life, and it touches folks on so many different levels. Like, you could look at the criminal justice system, and you can look at victims who are now victim defendants. Yeah. And when we say a victim defendant is someone who has defended herself and probably put some work in and ended up in jail. Yeah. Because she was defending herself. Mm-hmm. You feel what I'm saying? So, you know, and I've worked with a lot of them, and their struggle is hard and deep, because they're coming up with the record trying to, you know, get housing, get their kids back, and X, Y, and Z. So there's so many aspects to that we don't even consider, you know, what victims go through, you know. But victims come in all kind of shapes and sizes. It's not just women. The difference is because I've, you know, we've had conversations with folks, and it was like, well, what about men? And what about the LGBTQ community? This is our community. Right. When we talk about our community, it is not a oneness of women. It is all of us. We talk about young and old. Everybody. Nobody's excluded. You can't be, because violence touches everyone in one way or another. Just because somebody ain't putting hands on you don't mean you're not living in an abusive relationship, or having an abusive or violent experience. Your job can be abusive. When you think about what we go through being on the job every day, just trying to be a Black woman, show up on time, make money, take care of her kids, but then I got to deal with all this oppression and all this other malarkey that, you know, folks pull. So it's like our existence is one of survival. But I refuse to just say we're surviving. We are victorious. You know what I'm saying? We're still here. We're going to still fight in whichever way. If it got to be the Underground Railroad, if it got to be me calling one of my sisters that I know got a position somewhere and she can help my sister get in some shelter, or whatever it is, you know, we're going to make that happen for our community. So this is an opportunity to see a lot of really awesome, powerful folks come together. This is grassroots. We ain't got no money. Nobody's giving us no donations like that. You know what I'm saying? But we trying to make sure we can have some bread, some water, some chicken, some fruit, some something to, you know, nourish our community. So we're going to claim it right now. It's already going to be enough for everybody that shows up. I love
it. Well, this is really powerful. And honestly, you just mentioned something about the victims. And we just did, you know, several content pieces around Amijah Smith and her getting into the school board, right? And so you guys probably saw that in the way that her story was flipped with KUOW, and even the graphic really that they had up with, you know, excerpts of the court case, and just it was shocking to so many of us, because again, it perpetuates what you're talking about and how victims are treated when they protect themselves,
especially
right?
Especially when they look like us. Yeah. Don't get it twisted.
Yeah. There's a real connection to that.
They re-victimized her. They took that story out of context and they used it against her. Yeah. I know Miss Amijah. She's a good woman. She would have been great at what she already does. So she's going to keep doing what she do, you know, even though they didn't want her in that position of power. And if you dig enough, you will find something. But if you don't know the context and the backstory, how dare you? Right. How dare you publish that without knowing the context and the backstory and what she was going through?
Right.
But then, yes, again, like I say, change the lens. Yeah. If she would have been a white woman. Yeah. Oh, you stood up for yourself.
It changes.
She'd have been a hero.
And that's how media does us anyway, though. Media has a very biased lens of black folks. And I don't care for Donald Trump whatsoever. But when that brother says fake news, that not even brother. When the man said fake news is fake.
He was a brother on that one.
Especially about our community, though.
Right.
You know, and it's always been like that. I used to kind of think it was funny back in the days when every time a house be on fire or whatever, then they come to the, everybody be like, why do you always got to go to the crackhead to ask him what happened or ask him what happened? But that's intentional.
Strategic, yeah. Yeah, this is literally, one of our initiatives here at Africatown Media Network to take back our narratives, right? We're reclaiming our narratives. We're telling our own stories right here for our audience members because we know how to tell our stories the best way. We don't need an intermediary to do this for us. And that's why I thought it was so important because these issues don't get enough attention, period, point blank. And a lot of women are, and men, children, people in general suffer really on such a personal micro level where it's like, and when you combine all of that, you see something that is macro. You see it as large as it should be seen.
Yes.
I have a question about how do people register for this event? How do they come? Do they have to pay? What is the registration process?
This is free and open to the public. If you want to participate on a deeper level, please contact Miss Latanyahorace, LaTanya, LaTanyahorace @gmail.com. You can reach her by email. It's free, open to the public, 10 to 5 both days. Langston Hughes on Wednesday and the Tilth Farms on Saturday. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you guys saw the need to pull something of this magnitude together and to also ensure that there's several days and different workshops. I love the idea of the breakout groups because sometimes sharing in a larger group, especially something that is that intimate, gets really difficult for folks. And so having those breakout sessions will probably be able to pull a lot of great resources and ideas out of that breakout session to really see how do we resolve these issues within our own community. I do know that there are several initiatives happening in the region right now about it's kind of the same thing. How do we respond instead of police? How are we self-policing our communities, right?
Being proactive.
Exactly,
you know what I'm saying?
exactly.
We're not, though, because it's just so normalized. And people always, why you always got to call the police? Well, if we had a mechanism in our own community where our elders or a group of folks that understand the issues and the layers and the dynamics of our community could be on board, and instead of the police showing up deep to your house, we show up and be like, look, brother, let's go outside and talk about this. Or look, sister, let's go over here and talk about your behavior and how it's destructive to you, your freedom, and everything else.
Yeah, I think it's more restorative, too.
It is totally
I know
restorative.
that I've had several conversations with Dr. Mims around this topic and just creating like an elder council or something that allows us to kind of go to people that we trust, that we know, that we love, right? That can say, okay, look, you guys, we created a rubric around this and this is how we're going to intercede for our families. I think in general, it relates to a larger question about violence in our communities.
Yes.
And even when you have two teens who are bickering about something, how do we ensure that they don't get wrapped up into the system, right? So it's another...
that's a total another animal right there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because then now you're talking about the criminal justice system.
Yes.
You're talking about all the things and the people and systems around them that police them. You feel what I'm saying?
Yes.
I mean, and then you can take it another step when you talk about violence. All the mothers that then lost their babies because we didn't have so many kids die. I mean, I've worked with youth, Seattle Violence Prevention, the Royal Program, county, all that. And what I do know is there is a plethora of black mothers that then lost their babies. And I don't see people, for me, I've talked about it with other people that had a little more power. I was like, look, we need to do something to honor them, to support them. They're grieving. They lost a child. I don't know what that feels like. I don't want to experience it. But for the mothers that are losing, and it's happening constantly. Yeah. Like just you scroll through Facebook. Oh, y'all pray my cousin and lost they baby brother or my best friend's son, this and that. You know what I'm saying? It's so normal. We just don't even think about it.
Right.
But what about that suffering? You know what I'm saying? This child is gone. The mother's left suffering. And some mamas then lost not just one, but two kids right here in Seattle.
Yeah.
or in Kent, because they pushed us all out.
Yeah.
So in those areas, that's where you see a lot of that happening at.
Yeah.
Or in Federal Way. I know kids that have died,
Yep.
and many of us do, and it's a constant thing that happens. So violence in our community is not just domestic. It's just violence, period.
Yeah.
It's the environments we live in that are violent to us, and our health is a direct correlation to that. You feel what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So we can talk about environmental violence. We can talk about domestic violence. We can just talk on black violence.
Yeah.
We can talk about, violence from the media and the way that they characterize us and the way that they slander us and criminalize us. I mean, they'll throw a dark picture up as opposed to one that looks like you.
Yeah.
You feel what I'm saying? That make you look darker and more
Right.
menacing.
Right.
Those are the little tricks of the trade.
Tactics.
So it's just like, there's so much violence that we endure. It's just surviving. We surviving and living in this world. But now we know we got all these landmines around us, and they look really different, but they're really not.
Right. Right. And they actually have many of the same outcomes. I think the comprehensive approach, I mean, you guys were touching on this so well about the collectivism. Community Corner and this platform is specifically designed to share resources because collectively, that's the only way we build community.
That's the only
literally.
way.
And we can't do it on this, you guys are only over there doing that, and we're over here doing that.
No.
This separatism that we've had, that is really systemic, right?
Yeah.
Because the system made us feel like that was the best way to go about
Well, that's
things.
how the system is designed.
Exactly.
It all has the same purpose. It moves to the same goals, but it's siloed, particularly here in the Northwest.
Absolutely.
I mean, we have opportunities collectively to build like Africatown is building, and I'm so proud to see that this is, coming to fruition and all the wonderful things that are happening and occurring. However, Seattle is a siloed city.
Yeah.
All of the government programs operate in that way. They don't talk to each other.
Right.
They don't share the necessary information to prevent victims from being re-victimized,
Right.
telling their story again, to get the same dang resource that they're supposed to be able to get.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying? So
Right.
they got to go to another, go see my girl down the street. She going to help you out. And I got to go tell her the same story.
Yeah, you got to start from scratch. I mean, that's why the comprehensive approach is what's necessary at this point. It's like it can't be one solution to this issue. It has to be a multi-pronged solution. And I do know even this weekend, they're going to be talking about some of that at Langston Hughes with the IAC conference, right?
Yes.
And it's like so connected, because how do we deal with these issues of our mental health and the ways that we are impacted by violence? Because again, when we were talking earlier, we were talking about how we subconsciously absorb all of it, right?
Yeah.
And we subconsciously deal with it in these private ways. But that really creates mental issues later on down the line with that suppression.
Whoa.
So there's a lot that I love. What I love I'm seeing right now is events like this, events like the IAC conference that are really designed to start talking about these issues, giving them more light, and letting the public be a part of that.
Yes, and that's what we need. More people to not be afraid to share. More people to be able to say, because our community is so stigmatized on everything. At one time, cancer was something that was stigmatized, and mental health is still a very stigmatized issue and topic and need in our community. And also, too, having providers that look like us is a very stigmatizing need and want as well. I mean, of course, we have mental health issues in our community, but like other stigmatized issues, we can say HIV. Nobody really wants to talk about that.
Yeah.
But, you couple substance abuse and mental health, and you put some violence in there and some homeless on top of that, you got a bomb.
Yeah.
That's a bomb getting ready to explode, and that's what's happened. It's exploded onto our community, onto our streets. Even the homeless situation. There's a lot of violence there, a lot of mental health, a lot of substance use, and half of those folks just look like us.
Right.
Do you know how many unaccompanied minors there are in Seattle's public schools? Over 1,000. And the number just gets bigger every year. I'm talking about K through 12, but they're not going to say that out loud. You understand what I'm saying?
Wow.
So the issue is very deep, but it's interconnected and interwoven into everything that ails us.
Yeah. And it's a part of the larger healing. We talk about healing a lot,
Healing
right?
is
I mean,
necessary.
especially at Africatown, the land trust in particular focusing on reclaiming and rebuilding spaces. It's like we're dealing with gentrification issues and we need to heal from that, right? So I just love this. I'm so glad that you guys were able to share this knowledge so that the community can know about these events in particular, but also the larger issue around how we conceptualize violence.
Wow.
So many things.
So many things. That's what I'm saying. It's across the board, and health and wellness is all attached to it, and healing our trauma is the next thing, but is the first and foremost thing. I think that's a part of our dis-ease issues. You feel what I'm saying? Like the all of that in your cellular memory that you're suffering and struggling with, that you cannot, get the forgiveness in yourself and your soul to move on, and you stuck in that place because that's what happens with trauma oftentimes. So it's really important that the healing in our community happens, and it's a nationwide issue. I think it's a worldwide issue.
Absolutely.
But specifically where our community is concerned, we got to start with each other, with ourselves. So if we learn to love ourselves, we can learn to love each other.
That's it. Thank you guys
Thank
again.
you so much.
I mean,
appreciate y'all.
I was especially moved at how you just weaved violence into so many other aspects, right?
Exactly.
And sometimes you don't think about it like that, but to put it on the forefront, that'll help us put it on the forefront of you guys' all minds. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Community Corner with Trey Holiday and the amazing Tana Yasu and Latanyahorace. Thank you guys so much.